a purpose. God has a plan. I'm living His will. He's got me in His hands. I'm chilling, chilling, chilling with purpose. God has a purpose. God has a plan. I'm living His will. He's got me in His hands. I'm chilling, chilling, chilling with purpose.
Good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chilling with Purpose, the broadcast that rescues the heart and mind. I screamed because I really needed to scream, so I just thought I would make it fun. You ever have one of those days and you just need to scream? That's what I just did. I just decided to make it a fun way to scream by saying, welcome, hello. We are so excited to have one half of the whole of the Barns clan, of the Barns posse, of the Barns love story. And so she married, y'all. She's married like right now. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes the fellas don't want to come on and be like, Now, I'm all right if you want to tell it, but yeah, no. Mm-mm. And so that's what this is. Nonetheless, guess what? She has a how we met and she has a love story. And we're still going to have lots of fun. So we are excited to have Theresa Barns with us this evening. Before we get started, how are you all doing this evening?
Good. Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Marvelous.
Okay. How about you, Theresa?
I am wonderful. Wondermiss.
Oh, Wondermiss. So is that a combination of wonderful and wondrous? Or
You know, it's just a saying that I got from my mom. I don't know where it came from.
I like it.
I'm just wondermiss like my mom.
I like it. Wondermiss. We'll go for it. We'll go with it. All right. So this is how we kick this off. And I'd like to start by asking first of all, we need to start a little different. What is your husband's name?
His name is Curtis Lee Barns.
Curtis Lee Barns.
Curtis Lee Barns.
And how long have you and Mr. Curtis Lee Barns been married?
Woo! Well, we've been married. It'll be 23 years, November 21st.
Okay. So, you know, which one of them numbers in November is it? Okay.
We have grandkids and stuff now in November, so I had to remember. I'm like,
Oh, nice. Okay. And I feel like you also wanted to say how long you guys have been together.
Now we've been together 30 years.
Wow. Together 30, married 23 of those 30.
Yeah, actually, in August 22nd, we will be together 20. What is this? What year is this? 24. So we'll be together 32 years in November. I mean, in August 22nd.
Okay, so y'all been together upcoming 32 years.
Yes.
And you've been married 23 of the 32.
Yes.
Nice. This is going to be some good stories. All right. So
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
But you know what? People need to hear all of that because all of those facets, because a lot of times we've made a fairy tale. Made a fairy tale out of marriage. And people think it's like Cinderella, like he's going to find something to come to your house and say, does this fit? I don't know what just happened. So it's good to know that marriage still takes work. And I believe all of our couples from this season and last season have all made that statement along the way, that it takes work to have a successful marriage. So I'm going to stop talking because I don't know what's going on. We're going to put it in your hands.
And it is not a fairy tale, because I can't even tell you how many times in my mind I packed my bags. Now, physically I didn't, but in my mind, I done packed my bags. I was like, you know what, Lord, this is not what I thought it should be. Because we make up in our mind that it's a fairy tale. And so when that fairy tale doesn't happen, which is kind of like our prayers, I had a conversation with God. I said, God, do you answer every prayer? And he said, yes, I answer every prayer. The problem is you have in your mind what it's supposed to look like when I answer it. You don't accept what I say. And it doesn't look like you don't ask me what it's supposed to look like from my perspective. So yeah, it's all distorted. So I can tell you that me and Curtis met. We both kind of grew up in. I grew up in the church. My grandmother was a pastor. My great grandparents were pastors, and so I grew up in the church.
Wow.
And so we went to church every Sunday. I was a part of the choir. I was a junior usher, all that stuff. I was part of every part of the church camps, all that stuff. And he grew up going to church with his grandmother. So we both were in that atmosphere. And I grew up with, and I know I'm not the only one, because I came from a Methodist church. So I know a lot of people grew up the same way, with knowing Bible stories, but not the importance of the Bible stories, just knowing the history and not how they would affect us. And so I've always felt like I was saved, because I loved, and I knew who God was. I knew who God was. That's the difference of knowing about God versus knowing God. But we met years ago, 32 years ago, when he was living here in Colorado, and I was living in Indiana, and I had moved to Indianapolis. So I bought a house and lived in Indianapolis, and he came home for a class reunion, and we have an older daughter. And so she was living with him, and he brought her home for the summer. And so this all comes together when not knowing how it came together until I moved to Colorado, how God really had something to do with this whole relationship. And I didn't know it until after I moved to Colorado. And so I had been with my sisters and some friends and stuff. They came up to Indianapolis. We hung out. We went to a comedy show. We were kind of club hopping and stuff like that. And he came, and it was a well-known establishment, a club called Faces. And so we were in Faces, and I was standing against the wall, and this man walks past me in a white shirt. Now, I'm out there having a good time. Look, we having a good time. We went to different places and everything. We having a good time. And this man walks past me in this white shirt. And I heard, "That's your husband." And I was just like, I thought I'd have made this up in my mind, really, truly, because I had never heard the voice of God like that before. And I'm in a club. And so I blew it off. We were still having a good time. And there was an upstairs. And I remember we went upstairs and we were looking at everybody dancing, and a song came on. I don't even remember the song, All I remember is this guy next to me. I said, "Come on, let's dance." And when I got downstairs, it was Curtis. So I didn't pay attention to who it was. I was just like having a good time. And literally, from the time I said, "Let's go dance," we have been together.
Wow.
Literally from that time. We stayed together all that night talking, and Curtis does not drink. He has never drank at all. No liquor, no nothing. The first time he had something to drink was on our honeymoon, and he had a sip of champagne and wine, and he didn't even drink all. It was a sip. So we really just hung out, and from that time on, we spent the rest of the night hanging out. I went home, he went home, and then we just talked every day. And every day I seen him until he was coming back to Colorado. And when he came back to Colorado, and we had spent probably about almost 2 weeks together. And our very first date, he called me at work. He says, "I need you to take off work." And I was like, "Take off work?" He said, "Yes, just take off work." So I went to my boss. I said, "I need to leave." This is all in this 2 weeks. And I left and went home, changed. He came and got me, and we drove to a store. And he says, "I need to blindfold you." Oh, what's getting ready to happen?
Oh, wow.
He blindfolded me, laid me back in the seat. I said, "Wait, why I gotta lay back in the seat?" He says, "Girl, you're not gonna have me go to jail." He says, "Somebody gonna ride past us and see you blindfolded, and I'm going to jail. So you can't go to jail." He can't go to jail. And this was our very first date. And he drove to a park, left me in the car, and then when he came and got me, he guided me over where he had laid out a picnic with roses and food.
Wow.
And it was just, I was like, okay. So that was our first official real date. And we literally spent most of the time together before it was time for him to come back. And the thing about that is he even drove to Muncie, which is 60 miles away from Indianapolis, where my mom lived, because I needed to go home and check on my mom. So he was like, "Okay, I'll go." And we drove down there, checked on my mom. So he met my mom and everything. And during the time he was there, I got laid off my job. And I was like, "What the world?" He says, "Well, this is a good time for you to go on a vacation." So this is in 2 weeks. Now, ain't nothing happened. He ain't stayed all night with me. I ain't stayed all night with him. None of that stuff had happened. He was like, "You should go back to Denver with me." And let me tell you, this is really funny, because when he told me he was from Denver, I looked at him and I said, that means there's 2 Black people out in Denver. And I said that because I was out here when I was 13 with my father, and my father lives in Lakewood. And I promise, I didn't see no Black people. So when he said he lived out here, I was like, so there's 2 of y'all out there, my father and you. And he says, "Where was you at? Because there's a lot of Black people out in Denver." I was like, I had to believe it till I see it when I see it. And believe it or not, I was like, "Okay, I'll just go." So of course I called my mom and I'm telling her, and she's just like, "You'll be all right, go, because he's a good guy. I just know he's a good guy." I was like, "Okay." And I rolled out here with him. And I spent like a week out here and going up to the mountains, and it was just beautiful. And got home and I started looking for a job, and it was just not happening. And the girl that had moved into with me, she called him and she said, "Teresa's really depressed. You need to do something with her." And I didn't know she had called him. And he called me. It was probably, so that was like we met in August. I came out here later, the 1st of September. And then when I was at home, he was like, he called me. He says, so you still haven't found a job? He says, I'm coming to get you. And I was like, whatever. And he says, yes, I'm coming to get you. So just start packing up your stuff because I'm coming to get you. And I was like, oh, I got 2 kids. He says, well, I'm coming to get y'all. And I was like, oh, well. So I called my mom, and me and my mom stayed on the phone talking about it. And she says, I think it's a great idea. Why is she telling me I ain't married this man or nothing? And she says, it's a great idea. And so he came, and I said, okay, I left my son there because he was in school and I wanted him to finish up. And my daughter has not started school because she was only 4. So he says, I'm not flying. I'm catching a bus because I want to save money. Now he worked for Tri-County Health Department. So he was only in his career with the county for a couple of years. And so he was like, I need to save some money. So I'm going to catch a bus. And I tell you what, that was the worst ride for me. Worst ride for me. Every stop, and he didn't have a cell phone back then. So every stop they made, he called and fussed. Fuss. Because he hated that bus ride with a passion. He said, I don't know why we got to stop in every little town. But I kid you not. He got there. He mailed all my stuff, what we could mail back. And we drove my car out here. And we actually lived together about 5 years. However, during that 5 years is when I started my journey of knowing God personally. And when I got here, I didn't have a church. And I felt really out of place. I was like, I have to find a church because that's what I'm used to doing. I got to find a church. So I visited more churches, and I went to a Bible study at one church, and I was just sitting there. And I call this my road to Damascus moment, where a prophet that I did not know personally, she was the pastor of the church, pointed and called me out. And I was like, oh my God. And that's where I started my relationship with the Lord. Then it became, Lord, don't let me wake up tomorrow. Please don't strike me dead while I'm laying in the bed with this man. Lord, just don't strike me dead. I promise I'm going to get this together. And I just started diving in deeper. Well, he still was not interested in getting married. So, and then my son, I had him after 3 years of us being together. And then I had my daughter, 4 years. And then I was like, I'm out. I am leaving. I can't do this anymore. I didn't want to play house no more. I'm drawing closer to God. I just need God. I need to be in a better place with the Father. I bought a house and moved out. Bought a house, moved out. Me and my 4 kids was in a house, and we were doing fine. He was still a big part of the picture. He would come over. He would help me with the house. He would do stuff. And so we've never truly been broke up. We still have been together, but I told him, you need to stay in your place and I need to stay in mine. And that's how that's going to work, because I don't want to play house anymore. And that's outside of all of the relationship issues that you have with the dynamic of you being raised one way and I'm being raised one way, and now we're trying to bring two worlds together. So outside of all of that, you have that. Trying to know each other and trying to get to know each other. And so as we go through this, I'm just learning about God. I'm drawing closer to him. And I don't know, he had a revelatory moment. One day we were at his house and we were, I think we were laying on across the bed, looking out the window and just chit chatting and talking. And then all of a sudden it was like, you want to get married? And I kind of, okay. So we did. We started planning. I didn't move into his house until we got married. And then when we got married, we came together, and that was still a challenge. It was still a challenge. And it wasn't until, and the road was still bumpy and still, because what I found out is I did a Bible study, and I did it a couple of times with some women about Esther. I thought that I was ready to be married, but I was never prepped to be married. I was never taught. I watched my mother, and I was raised by a wounded woman. So therefore, you know, everything that she told me, I knew to stand my ground. And it wasn't until I read Esther that I realized I did this whole thing wrong. Whole thing. So not only did I make a whole lot of mistakes, I was not prepared to be a wife. I was not prepared for a lot of things that I faced, even though I felt like I was doing it right. And I wasn't. So I actually had to go back and do things backwards. And there was a point in time where I harassed Curtis about, you need to go to church. You need to go to church. And let me tell you, we could be doing great all week long. And that Sunday, because I harassed him so bad, was the worst days of the week. Sundays, because he would go and he would be so angry because he felt that I did, forced him to go. And he would be so angry. And I had to learn that, and it was God who helped me, that, Theresa, you concentrate on your relationship and let him concentrate on his. I'm accountable for me. I'm not accountable for him. And so that's how I learned to keep my focus on God and not horizontal versus vertical. So here we are today. I'm still learning, but we are far better than we were before. Far better.
So I have a question about that. How long did it take you to get to a peaceable point where if he doesn't go to church, you're okay, and you're not saying, okay, I'm good, but doing it loudly? You know, I'd be like, okay, he doesn't want to go, I'm just going to do my thing, versus, oh, so you're not going today? All right, then let me go.
Well, it was not overnight. And what happens is, so let me tell you the flip side of that, is that when we started going to Colorado Christian Fellowship, we were on Uvalde, and he came over and he gave his life to Christ at that church.
Yay.
He made friends, and then he started talking to people in the sound stuff. So my husband has his own business. He does sound engineering too. So he goes around the city and he actually sets up churches and he does weddings and he does parties and he does all kinds of things with DJing outside of his state job.
Mhm.
But when he got to CCF, then he started flourishing. So you think you happy when your man is in church. When he in church and you not in church with him.
Whoa.
Because, and it's not because I wasn't in church, but he was going to church an hour before me and he would still be there 2-3 hours after I left. And now he's doing such a great job. They want him to be a deacon. Now he's doing such a great job. He's this and he's that and he's this. And now I don't have a name. Oh, you're Curtis Burns' wife. I'm Theresa. I'm Theresa. But he became Curtis. Oh, I love Curtis. Oh, Curtis this. Oh, Curtis that. And I was like, and now no matter where in church, he's never sitting with me. He's always back in the sound. So now, there was no happy medium for me. There was no happy medium. So now I'm mad because he had church all the time. First I had him not going to church. Now I have him and he's at church all the time. So there was no happy medium.
For you.
Yet for me, there was no happy medium. And so it took a long time before I got that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did have a really traumatic thing that happened at church, which was, it was really tough to deal with. And when he got hurt by that, he didn't want to return. And I was like, okay, but this is something that you caused. So I'm going to stay where I am until we can figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we did counseling. He did counseling by himself. I did counseling by myself. And it all worked out, but he has not truly returned back. But in that counseling that I did, I realized that I have to concentrate on me. Me as a person. I have to be healed in order to be a good mother, a good wife, because I was being a wife out of my woundedness. And not only that, I was being a wife out of my mother's woundedness. Because my mother used to say, you always have your own. Don't let them know what the right hand doing and what the left hand is doing.
Right.
That is not biblical. I didn't find that nowhere in my studies at all. And I realized that she raised me out of her woundedness.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I got healed, then God was able to tell me where my position was and to stay in position. And this is a visual that God gave me. And I shared this with people because I thought it was really, really important. When I prayed for Curtis, I always would tell God, do this, do that. He needs this, he needs that. Help him, Lord. Change him, Lord. Change him, Lord. And God gave me a vision one time of me and Curtis being in an operating room. And we were laying on the table as God was working on us. But I kept getting off the table saying, Lord, look, check that. And then I go lay back down. And then I get up and say, well, wait, you missing that. You missing. And that's what the Lord was showing me. And he says, well, when you stay on the table so I can work on you, then I can work on him. But you are in my way of working on him.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. And that was the visual that I got, that God can't. That's why order is so important. If we stay in order, even if our husbands are making a mistake, if we allow him to lead and make the mistake, then God can come in there and correct him. But God is not going, he don't want to get in the middle of a bunch of mess. And it makes God's job harder when we are interfering with God's job. And so I learned that I just need to really talk to God versus trying to correct Curtis. And I just need to stay in line. And there's been so many times where I was like, that's not a good idea. But I didn't say it out loud. I just stayed in line. And I told the Lord, I made the Lord a promise, and I've stuck with it. And I said, Lord, I don't care if we end up homeless. I just need for you to work on him, and I will stay out the way and let you work on me. I don't care. I'm going to follow the direction that you give me in following him. And I don't care what happens, but I just need for you to know that I'm going to stay out of your way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stay out of his way. Even though I get frustrated, I learn to go into my closet. So the prayer closet is really my prayer closet, because everything I want to say to Curtis, I go in the closet and tell his clothes.
She said I talk to his clothes.
I do.
I call it his clothes. What's going on?
I go in there and I talk to his clothes, and me and the Lord have a conversation. And then I leave it alone. And I just really I'm learning to trust God in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And still, as of this day, I'm still just trusting. And I remember a conversation, Curtis and I was going back and forth, but this is in the midst of me really trying to learn me and really trying to heal me, and me trying to be a good partner and asking God to search my heart at every moment. And we were having a conversation, and I wasn't screaming or anything, and he was kind of at his level, and he looks at me, he says, you will not manipulate me. You will not.
Whoa.
And I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just walked away, and I came into my office. I sat in my chair, and I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, look, I just knew he was going to be on my side. He says, I said, have I manipulated him at any point? And the Lord said, yes. And I was like, and so I had to sit there for a minute. I was like, was that the devil or was that the Lord? And the Lord said, yes, you have. And so after I calmed down, I said, Lord, will you show me? And he began to show me how I tried to manipulate Curtis to do things my way. And so I had to repent. I had to ask God. I said, okay, I need for you to help me to reword things, to speak through me so that this does not happen. I want him to respond the way he wants to, and I want to be okay with his decision. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he says, you stop worrying about his relationship with me, and you worry about your relationship with me. Mm. And so everybody has a choice, and I can't stress about what his choice is.
Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't hinder you, though, from going to church.
Oh, no.
And it's just that great desire that you have, not just his relationship with the Lord, but the great desire for him to attend church with you as one unit.
It is a desire. And, but I don't want him to come to church for me.
Right.
I want him to do it for himself. Now, one thing is that if I ask him to come for a reason or whatever, he will come. He's never missed me preaching. So every time I preach, he's there.
Mm-hmm.
anytime I do a function, if I need him, he's there. The board teases me sometimes because when we were in the old church, whenever I did spiritual warfare, he would come in and set up all the sound for me. They said, you have your own tech.
Right?
Yep, I do. He come and set everything up for my birthday party. He wasn't invited.
That's where I met him.
He set up everything. So anything, and for the prayer brunch, I said, I'm gonna need you. He said, okay. So he'll come and do it. Mm-hmm. So he will come to support me with whatever I need when it comes to those things. And you know, it's funny because a lot of people think that I'm spoiled.
You are. But you're spoiled well.
Yes.
You're spoiled well and not spoiled rotten.
No, not rotten.
Really, you're just blessed. You're well taken care of. Yeah.
Truly. Because one thing is, you know, if he is an excellent provider, he is responsible. He is, let me tell you what I prayed before I met him. Now this is crazy. This is really crazy. So before I met Curtis, and it was probably it was the same year, it was just several months before, I got into it with a guy that called himself liking me. And I was like, it didn't last long because I was like, no, I'm done with this. I sat on the side of the bed and I was mad. And I said, Lord, I just want a good man. I want him to wear a suit when he go to work. I want him to have a bump and ride.
Lord Jesus.
Ain't that crazy? So Curtis pulls up. He got a good job. He got a good man. He's a good man. He dressed in a suit to go to work, and he had a bumper ride. Now, let me tell you what about his bumper ride. He had a 280 ZX. You get in it, it was like Fred Flintstone. You could see the ground. And the bra was holding the bumper on. Because he rented a car to drive home. So when we got here, I was like, oh, okay. But he had a sound system in his car. He is a music connoisseur, so he made me the most wonderful love CDs, music, beautiful. I still have them. So God gave me just what I asked for.
Exactly.
He did. He gave me just what he asked for. What I asked for. I said, that's why you got to be careful what you pray for. Now, I didn't pray for a godly man.
But you didn't know to pray for one.
I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't know to pray for one. But he still gave you a man whose heart is not calloused.
Right.
It's just still wounded. And I really believe that even people that are in a marriage similar to your situation, where you're active in church, you're active in your relationship with God, you really can't prove that Curtis is not active with his relationship with God. You can only prove that he's not active in the church that you attend. That's the only thing you can prove. I think that us as girls, it is our job to celebrate them in what they're doing well. Because that keeps them wanting to do well, and it needs to be genuine. So sometimes you just may have to, especially if we have an attitude, you just have to find what you appreciated and then start to build from there, because that keeps them, well, okay, what else do you need? Okay, what else do you need? I got you. I used to have a friend that she ministered a lot, and her husband loved God. He wasn't in church like we in church, right?
Right.
So every time the door opened, you wasn't gonna see him in church. And she was complaining one time, and I let her get it all out. I said, so I got some questions to ask you. She's like, okay. I said, so whenever you preach, does he give you hell about preaching? No, girl, he be talking, babe, get him. Break a leg, slay them devils. Go ahead in Jesus. I said, oh, okay. And then I said, so even when you're getting ready, does he like try to do stuff to make you late or throw you off? Girl, no. He actually was like, babe, what are you wearing? I'll iron it for you so you can be like really settled and peaceful while you're getting ready. I said, oh, okay. I said, so does he ever tell you that he's not going to come and support you? She's like, no. If he can't come, it's because he's working and couldn't get off, or maybe something happened at the last minute. He wasn't able to make the adjustment, but he's my cheerleader. He like supports me. I said, okay, so tell me again what you're complaining about. You know what she said? Okay, get your stuff and get out.
Well, that's true.
That's true.
It's true. Anytime I have stuff at my house, I have women over here, he makes sure everything's set up. I mean, from spraying off the patio to cleaning up the furniture and everything. You good? Okay, I'm out, because you know I ain't gonna be here with all these women. You know, and so I can't complain.
You can't.
I can't complain. No, I can't complain. He is, I mean, and we still, we just came from camping. We had a great time. Oh, no phones, no nothing. We just hung out in the camper, you know, and we went up and rode the Royal Grudge train and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And now that our kids are older, we travel quite a bit. We try to, you know, they're not an anniversary. Will you catch us here in the state of Colorado? So he is a great supporter, and he will listen to me, and he's listening to me a little bit more when I don't try not to overwhelm him with my spiritual experiences. So I'm trying not to overwhelm, but he'll listen to me. He'd be like, oh, okay. So I just have to let him, that's between him and God. You know, he knows what kind of music I want to listen, because he listens to everything. There's only certain music he don't like, and that is, I think, he's not crazy about country music. But he listens to all genres, and so he knows when he's with me, there's certain music I don't want to listen to, so he's very respectful not to play that. So, you know, I mean, I really can't complain. I just want him to have a stronger relationship with God, but he has to want it too. Yeah. But that's not going to deter me.
Amen. Go ahead, Sandra. I'm not. I saw you had.
No. I was just thinking. It's not really it's a thought when Theresa was talking about all the things that her husband does, and I was asking the Lord. I said, Father, is it that we have a perception on what our husband should be? Like, people put this pressure. Your husband have to be in church with you, because if he's not in church with you, then something is wrong. But in reality, there's nothing wrong. Not because he's not in the building with you, it does not mean he doesn't have a relationship with the Lord, because he's doing all the things that he needs to do. So don't get me wrong. We say, yes, it's nice, but I'm like, there's a lot of husbands that is in church, and some wives don't want them to be there because they're not doing half of the things that, how should I say it, that they should do. And then another thought just came to me. You know, what about if their assignment is just to be a supporter? Not so much in the church, but a supporter, like a husband who is there to support you in all the things that you have. What about if it's, and I know people will say, oh no, that's not God. But, you know, let us not, that's just a thought. What about if that's the assignment God gave him? What about if his assignment is just to support you, be a good husband, love you, anything you want, he's there? It's just a thought that came to my mind, because we put this pressure on, you know, on husbands, on what we know. You need to go to church with me. You need to do this. And don't get me wrong. Yes, people will say it's nice to have them there. But again, what about if his job is just to do what he's doing there?
Well, I think it's the fairy tale that people think.
Yes.
It's a fairy tale. It's what you see. Father knows best, and you know the Brady's stuff we
Oh,
used to watch on TV that we think that that's the way it's supposed to be, and it's just clearly not.
no.
It's
Well,
clearly
to
not.
some degree, I'm gonna push back a little bit on it.
That's okay.
Because now I do believe in us not pressuring and all of those things, but even now I'm questioning men and women that are saying they have this relationship with God, but you never have to assemble in church, as though God says you don't have to when he's telling us we need to. It may not be a church, but we're supposed to assemble together, and he told us the purpose of it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you can have the moment, but you can't have the rest of your life. And the difference being, um, when Theresa and Curtis got together, they were just coming into and whatever that looked like. Even though she was going to church, she wasn't church.
Right.
My circumstance or matter would be different because I'm very active in my relationship with God, and I'm active in the church. So you don't get to watch football every Sunday. Not every single Sunday. That's he gotta hang out with me because this is a part of my life. But every Christian, because I'm hearing Christians more and more, and this just became general, but I think it applies in general. A lot of Christians are saying that the Lord is telling them to leave. Okay, I go to a refuge in the city. The Lord tells me to leave a refuge in the city. Okay, I could get with that. But then he tells me that he's going to be my pastor.
Who? The Lord?
Yeah. And then I'm going to tell you, okay, the Lord
No.
told me to leave a refuge in the city and he's going to pastor me. Or he told me to come out of this church, but he's not sending you to another one, because
Right.
this is what Christians do. We assemble. So whether it's a church building, somebody's house, is an assembling that comes together. There is a watchman of our souls.
Mm.
It's all connecting
Okay.
together. So I can agree. I really can.
Oh
And
no.
then at some point I have to say, okay, when we turn in the corner on this, because it's time to turn the corner. Yeah, that's my part.
Oh no, that's a good point. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree with that. Disagree with that. Yeah, I mean, you pull the scripture out of Hebrew. How am I going to say, well, no, that's not the word? I mean, come on now.
I
Just,
love it.
but that's a good point too. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good point that you made. Yeah,
Yeah. But this is what I like about this broadcast,
yeah.
because we can freely have our thoughts and we're not afraid to say them live. And we're not afraid to be like, wait, what about XYZ? Or hey, I want to push back on that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's how you grow, though. If you keep all the thoughts and you make that thought build into like an altar in your mind, and you think that's it. No, you have to be challenged. I mean, even the Lord say, "Come, let us reason together." So
Come on.
even He was smart enough to say, "Listen, we could talk about this.
Yes.
We can debate." Well, I like the word debate. Like we can, but He says, "Let's reason." That
Yeah.
means even if my thought is all messed up, if I reason with him, he can bring correction. So
I like
yeah,
that.
so yeah, it's all good. That's beautiful, Teresa.
But
That's a beautiful story. Yeah. Um.
I think that it could be a stumbling block. Like if you put it in the way and you keep applying pressure, right?
Yeah.
And that's why God have to say, "Hey, that's my son. Let me work on him." Because a lot of times, especially prophetic people, they like to, we you want to
see the best. You see, and then you're working, and you're in church, and you're very active, and so then it's like you need to, and it's not because you're trying to be uh, I don't know the word I'm looking for, like have an authority and all this other stuff,
Right.
because as a prophetic person, you see ahead. You can see what would happen if this goes this way, or if it goes this way. And so there's an urgency that comes up, and it's like, and you always want the best, especially for a husband. And so it's like this. But when God said, "Hey, man, I got him," then He said, "Okay, then I could leave it in your hands," even though sometimes I want to to add do something or say something, but the leaving in the hands is because you don't, sometimes a wife or a husband can make a person hate church and hate God. And so God is the one who does the drawing. I don't think He wants you to force, manipulate, or push anybody into Him. And so, especially when you're prophetic and He say, "Hey, I got him. Let's work on this or let's work on that." And so I see that side of it, of the coin.
And can I tell you, okay, so that there was a point in time where that really stressed me out about Curtis and and my kids, because unfortunately I raised my kids the way I was raised because I was still learning. And now that I know better, they're older, so you know how hard it is to try to retrain grown kids. And that really stressed me out. And then it was last year, as I was praying about it, the Lord kept on saying, there will be casualties, and you have to be okay with that. And I was like, I don't want my kids and my husband to be a casualty. But He started taking me through the word where there was battles, and some of the battles, there were casualties because people made their own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where He kept bringing up the First Peter. You can walk it out and demonstrate it without words.
Yes.
Keep walking it, keep demonstrating it without words. And so that's what I try to do more often than not, is to demonstrate it versus beat them over the head with it or be stressed out about it.
I like that.
Wow.
We're an ever learning people if we choose to learn for the better versus having to learn from a beating.
Yeah. and of course, I do desire for him to come one day. And I'm just believing that he will. But I also know that I see marriages in church and they are a complete disaster and they complete fraud, where they're not as happy as they appear to be. Just like you were saying today in the devotion, you said you pretend that you are alive.
Yes.
And you're not.
Yeah, it is very important. What I've enjoyed your story altogether. What I've enjoyed the most of it is how you have honored your husband in the telling of the story, and you're letting us know, like, hey, he takes good care of me. He takes good care of his family, and it sounds like it's something that is not just instilled in him, but it is a purpose for him.
Yeah.
This, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I got this. I got it. So you only have to dip into this. I got this. I caught that you had said there were children prior to the two of you coming together. So how did blending all the 4 children together, how did that go?
So I had 2 before we got together, and he had 1.
Okay.
And our girls are 2 years apart.
I know.
And so, we had the two girls together
Mhm.
a lot before I even came out to Colorado. And the two
Okay.
girls were like, that's my daddy, that's your mommy. So they both was calling him daddy and calling me mommy. And I was like, well, wait a minute.
That's cute.
Wait a minute. And his daughter actually lived with us for the first year when I came out here. She came out too, so she was living with him before, and so it was fine. And then I brought my son out. My son came after I figured, okay, well, I'll just stay.
Right.
So that has never really been a big issue at all, and it still really is not an issue now.
Right.
So we don't really have issues around the kids.
That's good.
One thing that I really loved what my mother taught me is that because her and my dad, I think I was maybe 2 or 3 when they broke up.
Mm-hmm.
My mom never said one bad word about my father, ever.
Mhm.
Nice.
Ever. And so we never had that issue with my kid's dad or her mom. And
Mhm.
so that was never a problem. Even if me and him had a conversation, the kids were not included on that. And so we've always respected the other parent, period.
Good.
Period. Yeah. So they never knew that if there was issues, they never knew. They didn't know until they grew up and they was like, oh, them people is crazy. So that really wasn't an issue with that. I think it was more of an issue for him because he was, and I mean, not a bad issue, because he is so take charge. I'm going to take care of it. I'm not going to rely on somebody else. I'm going to do this. And he's kind of like that now.
Mhm.
He's still kind of like that, which is, can be a good thing, can't be a bad thing. But he would not include me when he went to like parent teacher conferences and stuff.
Okay.
And I didn't really too much worry about it because I was kind of new on the scene and she didn't need another mother that first year anyway, because he was taking care of it. And then she actually went back to live with her mother after about a year after I was here.
Okay.
So it was really not, and we both went back to her graduation. He was at all. So our 3 kids that we have together is ours. But it's one that we have 6 kids.
Nice.
We have 6 kids. We don't have, he got 1 and I got 2 and we got 3 together. We have 6 kids.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love when people can really do that and be like, there's no fancy words to it and there's no stepping to it. It's like, we got a full understanding, but these my kids too.
Yeah, we have 6 kids.
Pouring the same amount of sweat, blood, and prayers for them as you did the ones that came out of your womb. So listen, we're going to roll out like a whole gang.
Right. And I can tell you, and when you say give Curtis his props, I literally don't worry about much at all. I truly don't. When his mom passed, he left here and he was gone a whole month because he stayed with his mom the whole time. I didn't have to worry about anything here. When his mother passed, I still didn't worry about anything. His friends came over, took the truck to get an oil change. He had my patch set up. He had the hotel set up. They came and loaded the truck up at 6 o'clock in the morning so that me and the kids could get on the highway. He had everything laid out. So when I got to a certain point, the hotel was ready. I pulled into the hotel, stayed the night, got something to eat, and was back on the highway. So he takes care of, I mean, everything. When I drove home by
Okay, yeah.
myself, he had the stops line. So I literally don't worry about things that a lot of married women may worry about.
Yeah. That's the natural version of him treating his wife like Jesus to the church. This is the
Mhm.
natural version.
Yes. Yes. I
Huh.
don't worry about anything.
He got a friend that's acting like him. No.
He's one of a kind.
Indeed. Indeed. Ladies, y'all have any other questions?
No, it's a beautiful story. Really beautiful. Yeah. I like the
It is
journey. Yeah. Thanks
One
for
thing
sharing.
a
that I've
journey it
witnessed
has been.
about, yeah, that I witnessed about Curtis and Theresa. If Theresa thinking about it and her husband thinks that she thinking about it, he already making it happen. I've seen it. I've seen it. And so I just think it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that you even told me a story about the RV, right? Was that you that said you wanted an RV?
The house and the RV.
Yeah, the house
Yeah,
and the
the
RV.
house and the RV. See, that was another lesson for me, though. That was another lesson for me when I was harassed because we had 4 kids already in the 3-bedroom house, and I was like, we need another house. We need something bigger. And the Lord told me, you be satisfied with what your husband provided. And I was like, okay. So I started painting and decorating. 1 year later, he came home. He says, I found us a house. And I was like, I didn't even know we was looking. Well, praise God.
See, right there.
And we got a 5-bedroom house, and everybody had a room, and we had room to stretch out, and it was wonderful. Same thing with the RV. I kept on saying, hey, we done tent camping from here. We're grown now. Let's get a camper. And he was like, nah, we'll wait. And then one day he came home. He says, I found us a camper. I was like, look at Jesus answer prayers.
See, I love it.
I just have to wait on my
Yeah.
husband. I can't step out before him. And I think that this conversation was very important for women that are in my same position, but they don't have anybody to talk to or to encourage them into, every time I pack my bags, God was like, and it'd be like in my mind, not literally. He'd be like, no, that's not a good reason. Not a good reason.
Oh, God.
That's not it's not in my word. So I want to encourage women to stay in it, as long as he ain't beating the tar out of you and God didn't tell you to leave, and stop always looking for the negative.
Yeah.
Stop picking them apart. Don't pick them apart.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, y'all heard it here first.
Oh.
One of my favorite TV shows is Burns and Allen.
Oh.
Burns and Allen. George Burns and Gracie Allen. Oh my. That right, Maggie? You feel me? Yes. I wanted to be like, you heard that here on the Burns Chilling with Purpose broadcast. So, hey, ladies that got husbands, appreciate your husband.
Yep.
And ladies that got fellas and y'all want to move toward marriage, start appreciating him now. Now is a good time to appreciate what you have. And it will cause you to be set up for greater.
Yeah.
Set up for greater. Celebrate when he tightened that screw on the doorknob. What?
Amen.
Babe, listen. That door is working swell, boolicious. Don't have to do it like that, but
And
right.
sometimes you do.
And sometimes you do. Slap. No, okay. Woo, wait till I get married, Jesus. Okay. What would you like to leave us with, Theresa, our viewing audience?
Well, I think what is helping me in my marriage is my relationship with the Father.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that almost ruined my marriage is talking to friends that weren't married and that always agreed with me.
Mm.
And I found out they were friends, but they weren't real God friends.
Mm.
Because my real friends told me, you know, you was wrong. And did you ask God? So I would say your relationship with God will keep this where it's supposed to be. So I do have friends that I call and vomit on, and they just listen to me. And then they like, go on in there, do what y'all got to do. And they let me throw up and get it all off my chest. And then they like, okay, well, I'm going to be praying for you, or you want to pray, or, you know, what did God say?
Yeah.
Those are the friends that you want to talk to.
Amen.
Good.
Amen. So y'all heard it here, y'all. Uh-oh. My TV want to act out. We love y'all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
God has a purpose. God has a plan. I'm living His will. He's got me in His hands. I'm chilling, chilling, chilling with purpose. God has a purpose. God has a plan. I'm living His will. He's got me in His hands.